This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth.
That's a fit. That's a match.
No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
You don't want them to have running backs. You don't want them to pay them.
I
You don't want them to draft
to-
them high. You want
No.
them to take a guy in the 7th round
Yes.
and for him to run for 2.3 yards per carry
No.
because you'd rather they never run the ball ever because that's what the nerd
No,
math tells you.
no. I
Evan,
would rather-
they are going to run
I
the
would
ball. They
rather-
need a good running back.
An age-old discussion of
Yes.
do running backs matter? I think we've been arguing about do running backs matter since 2018,
Yes.
maybe, since the day we started working together. And I stand by my take on that, but we don't have to argue about that anymore. It's Evan Lazar, Alex Barth, Patriots Catch-22 here with you on a Tuesday because, of course, Thursday is July 4th. Big day. I think July 4th is your favorite day of the year.
July 4th or Thanksgiving. Those are probably my two favorite holidays.
The most American holidays.
Well, think about
the
it.
proud American over
You're
there.
just kind of sitting around. There's good food one way or the other, either Thanksgiving dinner or barbecue. You're just kind of hanging out. Thanksgiving is football. 4th of July is the beach. Like that's all I need. I'll play some golf. That's all I need.
Are you a cookout holiday guy or Thanksgiving? We're not Christmas, but
Well, that's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
that time of year.
They're both good. They're both good. It's food, man. I'm gonna make some wings this year.
I feel like I prefer.
My mom makes really good steak tips every year on the 4th.
Yeah, I think I might be a Thanksgiving guy.
But you don't like turkey.
You know what though? We've made our own turkey the last couple years, and maybe we're getting there. It's
You
better.
gotta have a homemade turkey.
No, we always had a homemade turkey
Yeah.
growing up, but I'm just saying Jess and I have made the turkey ourselves, and it's better than what I remember.
Okay.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus that might be listening in my family. I don't want to say that anybody is doesn't know how to cook or anything like that. But I come from a family, especially my mom's side. I'm just gonna do it. On my mom's side of the family, and I know nobody cares about this, but
Can you tell it's the middle of the off season?
exactly that any sort of seasoning on the food is considered spicy.
No.
Any pepper, anything like that.
So that would explain why you didn't like turkey for all those years.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think-
anything that could possibly be mistaken for a kick in terms of
Yeah.
spice in a food is out.
I think when it comes down to holidays, for me, it's food. Like how good a holiday is directly in line with what the food is.
I would agree with that.
Thanksgiving, it's always, that's the basis of the holiday. It's always good. The 4th of July, you can have a really good cookout, but there are also years where you're at the beach all day, whatever. You just get back, all right, just throw the burgers on the grill. Like, I don't want to deal with all
Right.
this. So it can be more hit and miss, but, again, sit on the beach, eat some barbecue. I love the hot dog eating contest, although Joey Chestnut's not in it this year,
I know
so
you're
I'm
very
bummed
upset
about that. But I'll still watch it. I think Matt Stoney's the local guy, so I'm rooting for him. But, yeah, solid. Any holiday that you just sit around and do nothing and you don't actually have to do anything is a good holiday in my book.
I agree with that. I can't disagree with that. I really do think that I would prefer to be on a beach, but I prefer the Thanksgiving meal. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, but you couldn't do both because a Thanksgiving meal
it
after
would-
sitting on the beach would knock you
or
out.
or before, which is
No,
also
but, like,
not a good option.
Thanksgiving is couch all day, football's on TV. That's the one thing the 4th of July does not have.
It's sports.
Is sports. And I've said this for years. What baseball should do is they should treat, like, the NBA has Christmas, the NFL has Thanksgiving, and now Christmas.
Right.
The NHL
Yeah.
and New Year's. The NHL has New Year's. College football has New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, right? Basketball has
Yes.
March. Baseball needs their holiday. And I get it's different because it's the summer and people are outside, but some years it rains or there's going to be people that want to, check in and out. What I would do is every year, it doesn't have to be all 30 teams, but I would find big rivalries, either historic rivalries, Red Sox, Yankees, right?
Right.
Or World Series rematch. They do the NBA Finals rematch a lot on Christmas. And you'd start like Red Sox, Yankees, noon, 4th of July, every year. They alternate the home team. Then maybe you do like Phillies, Mets.
Yeah, Cubs,
in like
Cardinals.
the 3 o'clock window. You could do Cubs, Cardinals
Giants,
at 5 o'clock. End with Giants, Dodgers,
Yeah.
or with Dodgers, Padres, or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I would just have through the day, noon, 3, 6, or noon, 3, 7, and 10.
Yeah.
I would just have marquee games throughout the day and make them all rivalries, make them all big games, make it a spectacle, do special uniforms. That's something I miss about football on Thanksgiving. It used to always be throwbacks on Thanksgiving. Remember
That's
that?
true.
In the NBA, too, they would do special uniforms. So I think baseball should do that. Again, as you can tell, we're in the depths of the NFL offseason.
Well,
anyway, that's a take for you.
Just one last thing on this.
Yeah.
Baseball doesn't do that because baseball doesn't know how to market its own sport.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're probably the worst at it. The NBA did disappoint me though this year in the finals, especially. But there was nothing special about the finals broadcast, the court. Remember the court? You used to have the big Larry O'Brien.
Apparently, it was slippery, and we don't have the technology, I guess, to make it not slippery.
Or the intros. Remember how intense the intros used to be, and the pyrotechnics, and all. It was just a spectacle, like the Super Bowl. Like this is something bigger than just your standard Wednesday night regular season game. They just completely forgot about that this year, and it just was terrible. And we had the stupid floating YouTube TV graphic, and that was it.
They didn't even use. Usually, they do a different. So the score bug for those who did something besides communications in college. The score bug is this. It's called this. It's what the scoreboard on the bottom of the screen or in the corner of the screen is called. They usually do a special score bug for the finals, but they used it this year for the Eastern Conference Finals, so it wasn't even that.
It's brutal. Hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals for the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go to the off-season. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. We might have a few Bud Lights on Thursday.
Might, yep.
Some Bud Light seltzers, maybe. So today's show, we're going to throw it back, a little throwback to Patriots Beat days, and we're going to do a live Q&A. So we have some questions that we got already on Twitter, or the X machine, that we can discuss.
Yep.
Alex or I will monitor the YouTube chat as well, and so you can ask questions there. But we're going to let the listeners set the agenda here, because there's really not a ton to talk about. So in terms of the Patriots. Now, yesterday was quite the day in Boston sports, but in terms of the Patriots, there's not a ton to talk about. So webradio@patriots.com is the email address. You can call in 855-PATS-500. You can ask questions either of those ways. You can hit me up on Twitter. You can hit us up in the YouTube chat, and we will throw a bunch of questions answers at you guys from your questions over the next couple of hours here, and we'll probably mix in some non-football stuff too, because there's a ton going on in the city of Boston right now in terms of sports. So that's what we're going to do. I think a good place to start, though, is with my Twitter replies here to the tweet I sent out this morning asking for questions. And I think that there's some good ones in here, so we can start here. And there's one jersey-related question that I know you want to sink your teeth into. But I think that the number one sort of theme of questions that we got were mostly personnel related, as you would expect from our show. But I think that there's a couple of questions about the big picture of the team right now, and just sort of setting the table of the big picture of the team. And the number one question that I saw in here from Cody, he asks, do we think it's more likely that Coach Mayo is gone within 3 years, or the Patriots win the AFC East within 3 years? So this question to me is, if you just go by the odds and just go by the percentages, it probably overwhelmingly favors that Gerard Mayo would be gone within 3 years. Right. Because that's just the nature of the beast, right, of the cycle. I would also throw in there, and you might disagree with this, but you're going to have to go be better and go through Josh Allen in order to win the division.
Well, not sure about that, but
so in order to win the division in the next 3 years, right? Maybe in the next 5 years or 10 years, it would be a different conversation with Allen.
10 years, they really should.
But in the next 3 years, It's his division until proven otherwise.
But no, it's not.
What do you mean not?
Because
he's won the division 5 years in a row.
And they got rid of
4
half
years.
the team this offseason. They got rid of the wide receiver that turned him into the player he is. He regressed last year. That doesn't mean the Patriots are automatically going to win the division. I think going into this season, the AFC East is wide open. It doesn't mean I would pick the Patriots to win it. I still think they're the fourth most likely, but I think the Dolphins and Jets, this is all assuming health, the Dolphins and Jets just have just as strong of a case to win the AFC East as the Buffalo Bills do.
You really believe that?
Yes.
They don't have a better quarterback.
Jets might.
The Jets
we'll see
don't.
what kind of condition Rodgers is in. The Jets might.
When
last time we saw Rodgers healthy, he was better than he's Josh Allen without all the picks.
That's crazy. He was not better than Josh Allen when the last time we saw Aaron Rodgers.
Last time we saw him engaged. That last year in Green Bay doesn't. That's
okay,
Brady in 9. Remember Brady in 19, and then he went to Tampa, and suddenly he had like a reason to compete again.
That's fair. The Bills are definitely
also
in a
the
transition.
rest of that
I'll
roster. The rest of that roster, they completely tore it apart. There is Stephon Diggs ain't walking through that door. Micah Hyde ain't walking through that door. Okay,
but that's not how they look at it. I understand where you're coming from, and
so
they don't look at it like they tore the roster apart.
Who's they?
The Bills. The Bills are looking.
I don't care how the Bills look at it. The Bills look at it like they've already won 5 Super Bowls the way they operate.
Okay, but I'm just telling you that the Bills look at it like they cut the veteran dead weight from the top of the roster, and they're recycling or kind of transitioning here to a different type of roster.
Good for them. Congratulations. That can be how they see it. They got rid of good players and didn't replace them.
That's not necessarily true, though. They just replaced them with younger guys. Like, what if they're right?
Younger, unproven players.
Yeah, but what if they're right? Like, what if they're right that their guys that they got rid of were aged out of the program and they recycled the roster and they turned it over, and instead of Stephon Diggs at 32 years old, they now have Keon Coleman on a rookie contract? Like, what if they're just right about some of these moves?
But that's what did you say at the beginning there? What if? What if? It's all a what if.
But you're also operating on a what if too. Like
right.
You're saying what if it
all
blows up in their face.
You said it's the Bills' division to lose. What I'm telling you is they have what ifs that are as major as the Jets and Dolphins.
Okay. Until somebody dethrones the Bills, they have won the division every year since 2020.
They won it by like a game last year and Rodgers wasn't healthy. The division's been bad.
Okay, we're not doing the division.
The
division was bad for 20 years.
I don't think. Could the Bills win the division? Absolutely. I don't think it's automatic. If we were to go through the divisions in the NFL, I don't think the AFC East is towards the top of the most obvious division winners.
No, but that's I think probably more because even though the Bills are the favorite to win the division, Miami and the Jets are also favored to make the playoffs.
So there's a difference.
So they have 3 good teams within the division that all could, injuries break their way, whatever.
There's
any
a difference.
Sort of coin flip goes their way, then maybe the Jets win the division instead of the Bills by a game.
There's a difference between being the favorite and it being their division. That's the difference.
I don't know why you're so offended by that. They won the division 4 years in a row.
And they got worse.
So,
they won the division 4 years in a row in large part because of guys like Stephon Diggs. This goes back to my whole take about the Bills. That Josh Allen, none of those other guys ever get enough credit because God forbid we say anything other than Josh Allen Superman. Now those guys aren't there. If Josh Allen really is this Superman, which I think if he was, they would have won a little more in the postseason. But if Josh Allen really is this Superman, then they'll be fine. I don't like the way people overlook the difference Stephon Diggs made. I don't. I like Stephon Diggs. I think he's a really good player. I think he made underrated for years.
He made a huge difference with the Bills, but there was definitely last year there was an ending. Like there was you could clearly tell.
I'm not saying
not only was he maybe a step slower than he had been in the past, but the relationship there with the organization was certainly on the way out, as we see with wide receivers for generations. At some point, almost every single diva wide receiver out where they're welcome, and that's what happened with Stephon Diggs. I hear you with the Bills. They are in a direction right now where it's twofold. One is, to your point, that they are hoping that Josh Allen is Superman, and he is going to be like Tom Brady was for the Patriots, not obviously win 6 Super Bowls, but he's going to be a guy that we can put Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley and Dawson Knox with him, or we can put Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid with him, and Josh Allen is still going to put up numbers because he's Josh Allen. So that part of the roster doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, the Patriots did this for years, that they would just rely on Brady to elevate the offense and be the reason why the offense scored points. The Bills are going through a similar transition now as what I would say, without the titles, I get that, but they're going through a similar transition now as the Patriots did in like 08, 09, 2010, right, where the original dynasty Patriots aged out. The Brewskis and the Vrabels and the McGinnis on the defensive side of the ball, the Troy Browns, Deion Branch, like those guys aged out. So Belichick, what did he do? He essentially did a reboot, a mini rebuild on the fly because he had Brady, who was floor was like 10 wins. So they didn't need to necessarily crater, or bottom out because they had Brady. Right now, I feel like the Bills are doing a similar thing. They didn't win like the Patriots did.
And this is what I would say. This is where the delusion of the Buffalo Bills comes in, because who else sort of did that is the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Bills are trying to mimic something that the greatest coach of all time, probably the greatest coach currently in the league, because Bill's not in the league. I'm talking about Andy Reid. Yep. And the greatest quarterback of all time, the best quarterback in the league have done. I'm sorry, Josh Allen is not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Tom Brady. Sean McDermott, how do you feel about Sean McDermott pulling this off? He's alienated everybody in that building. Everybody. I don't think he has what it takes to pull it off.
Okay. Fair.
So
that if I was
to go back to the original question, though, because I did have a thought on that. It was what is more likely to happen within 3 years? Gerard Mayo gets fired, or the Patriots win the division. I think that it's possible that neither happens.
Yeah.
What if they're like a really competitive, like not this year, but what if by the time you get to year 3, they're like a really competitive wild card team, and they're right there knocking on the door? I don't think you're not going to fire Mayo at that point, but even though they still haven't won the division, so I don't think it's an either or. I feel like people have kind of pictured it as an either or and labeled it as an either or. I don't think it's quite an either or.
That's fair. I am fascinated by this division though, because it's all three of the teams that should be vying to win the division, because I don't think the Patriots, I think we all agree the Patriots aren't there yet.
Yeah.
But all the three teams, they all have something that is a glaring potential Achilles heel. The Bills are turning over their roster. We just broke it down.
Yeah.
But I also think that you pointed to Sean McDermott, who, if you ask me, has a hotter butt than any coach in the league.
Absolutely.
Going into the season.
Absolutely.
If they don't at least make a run in the playoffs this year, then Sean McDermott at some point has to be out. Has to be out.
I love to give this stat about Kyle Shanahan, and we don't need to go down the Shanahan road, but it applies to McDermott as well. The two, because they were both hired the same year, the two coaches that have been with their team the longest without a championship are McDermott and Shanahan. And their approach, this is going to be, I think, year 7, year 8 for them. We've been over the list of the coaches that have been with the team 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. One, it's not a long list. Generally, you don't get that much of a leash, even if you're getting close.
Well, because Shanahan's made 2 Super Bowls. So, his leash has been because he has had some success. I mean, much more than McDermott's success, at least.
Oh, well, that's why I make this take more about Shanahan than McDermott, because I think the way Shanahan is talked about, people don't put McDermott in the same tier, and they shouldn't. Shanahan's a better coach than McDermott is. And I'm not going to debate that. But you go back to that list, right? And here it is. Marv Levy, Marv Lewis, that's Shanahan. Marv Levy's Shanahan. Marv Lewis, Ted Marchibroda, Jeff Fisher, Dan Reeves, Jason Garrett, Andy Reid in Philly, Dennis Green, and Jim Mora. That's kind of the list. Mike Holmgren was in Seattle for 10 years without a title, but he'd previously won one in Green Bay, so he at least had it on his resume. That's the list you're looking towards. And we can argue about whether or not Shanahan fits on that list. I think there's really 2 tiers to that list. Sean McDermott absolutely belongs on that list right now, and the difference is I don't think he gets to 10 years. I don't think he does.
Oh, no.
Assuming he doesn't, if he wins one, he'll be the coach for life. But
for all of his faults with Kyle Shanahan, I don't mean to go down the Kyle Shanahan road.
No, it's very much trying to avoid that.
Kyle Shanahan is 2 fourth quarters away from winning 2 Super Bowls. Sean McDermott hasn't touched the Super Bowl.
Right.
Right. So it's a different conversation.
Sean McDermott can barely get to the conference championship.
Right. All right. But we can move on from that. I think people understand where we're at. Richard, kind of connected, sort of connected. Do you guys believe we'll be picking in the top 5 again next year, 2025 draft? I do, with how bad our O-line is going to be. So the reason why I feel like top 5 pick is definitely in play is actually more related to their schedule than it is to their actual personnel on the roster. They just have an incredibly difficult schedule for a team that is coming off a 4-win season that's now rebuilding. Based off of some of the data that we have on schedules, they have arguably the most difficult schedule in the NFL. Just when you factor in expected wins by opponents, where the games are, the travel, all those aspects, when you put it all into one data point, they have one of the toughest schedules in the NFL this coming up season. So when you look at that, I keep saying this, they could be a 3 or 4 win team, but the product on the field is more representable, more competitive than it was last season. When you say top 5 pick, I can't imagine a worse season from hell than what they had last year.
Yeah.
And they still picked 3 overall, right? So you're still talking about winning really winning 3 or 4 games at most to be in the top 5. It's almost hard to do. Like, they were so bad last year, and they were almost vying to not be that high, right? And we know about the game in Pittsburgh on Thursday night and the Christmas Eve game in Denver.
They needed some tiebreakers.
They were right there to being from anywhere to 3 to 6 or 7 towards the end of the season, and that was with some of the most deplorable offensive football I've ever seen at the professional level.
How do you really feel?
Right? So just put that in perspective. The schedule is really, really difficult. I don't think that they will be a top 5 team solely because the roster talent doesn't allow them to win more games. I just don't know if they're going to be ready to win a competitive game against some of the teams that they're going to be going up against. It's hard to find a lot of cupcakes or easy wins on the schedule this year.
So I'll just play spoiler here, and I think right around 5, I think they'll pick lower than they did last year, like further down. I don't think they'll be picking
I would say
3.
that just to finish, I would say that maybe around 7 or 8 is where I'm at right now in terms of where they'll be in the draft order a year from now.
So I would put the number at like 4.5.
In terms of the draft order.
In terms of the draft pick.
Yeah.
Like, or are they, picking before, top 4 after? Just to play devil's advocate to what you said about why you think they will get a top 5 pick, I look at it and they're going to be part of the reason that they were able, with 4 wins, to pick top 3 last year. There were a lot of teams last season that just hung around 500. You look at the last place team, the AFC North, won 9 games. In the AFC South, they won 6. NFC North, they won 7. There were a lot of teams hanging around 500. There's going to be, I think there's a lot of teams, Evan, that had really bad off seasons this year, or just didn't do enough. And I look at Arizona, that team could be a disaster. Carolina, I don't think did enough. We'll see when Jane Daniels plays. If he doesn't, Washington could be in the conversation. They're kind of like the Patriots. The Giants could be a real mess. The Titans really didn't do anything, and I thought
the Titans did do things, but the Titans, in a way, almost did what the Patriots did in 2021. They signed Calvin Ridley. They trade for L'Jarius Sneed. It's kind of bizarre, in my opinion.
Worst coach, still no quarterback.
It's just it's a really bizarre situation to be investing that much money in the roster when you still don't really have answers to those 2 questions.
Right. So I shouldn't say they did nothing, but they could be bad. They could be bad. It's an old team too. They have to totally reinvent themselves. They lost Derrick Henry. And the other team I'll throw in here, this might surprise some people, and I know they have the streak and whatever. I'm really curious to see what the Pittsburgh Steelers look like. The Steelers could be a 10-win team. They could be a 2-win team. I don't think I'd be surprised either way. But the point being, there's going to be a lot. I think there are going to be more teams in contention for those top 5 picks. Last year, and I have to pull up Mock Draftable for a second. Not Mock Draftable, but Tankathon. Last year, by the time we got to it'll go back to Thanksgiving, right? Last year, by the time we got to Thanksgiving, we kind of knew that it was like 4 or 5 teams that were going to be in the basement, right? It was the Bears/Panthers, that team, the Patriots, the Commanders, and the Cardinals. The Chargers were around there, but you knew they had it in them to win some games. I guess you throw the Giants in, that's 5, but we kind of knew that it was a small group. I think this year when we get to that point, there's going to be 7 or 8 teams all vying for maybe not the top pick, but the top 4 or 5 picks. So if anything knocks them down the draft order, like you said, they have a tough schedule. I just think there's going to be some other teams this year that are really, really, really bad.
Well, that's what the league wants in a way, is the parity,
right?
Both at the top and the bottom, where you can look at a team. You mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is a fine example, that you could say that could be a 10-win team or that could be a 3-win team,
right.
And I wouldn't be surprised either way. In a weird way, that's what the league is trying to encourage, is that any given Sunday a team can pull off an upset because the talent gap isn't that wide.
Patriots beat the Bills last year.
Right. Still one of the most crazy wins of this post-Brady era, to be honest with you.
I was happy.
There was so many. The Patriots post-Brady, Mac Jones era Patriots, if you want to call it that, they were so predictable. They beat up on the bad teams, and they lost to the good teams. And it was that way for 3 years, except for the Bills game last year.
Was it true the whole time? And maybe we didn't know that much about the Bills. Anyway, continue.
Oh my God, we're not doing this again.
I got one on Twitter if you want.
Go ahead.
I don't want to throw off the order where we're going. This is a little more specific. This is from Joho on Twitter.
Oh, this is actually the next question I was going to ask too. So.
Oh, all right. Realistically,
yep.
This is a friend of mine from high school, so I want to get this.
Of course.
Realistically, how long a leash does Brissett have before he gets benched, assuming that he's the Week 1 starter? Is there any chance they ride him all year to ensure a better draft pick?
To the second part of that question, no.
Yeah, I'm with you.
They're not tanking. You can't. One of the things I don't want to lose sight about when it comes to how competitive they are in 2024 is, fair or not, this new regime, Elliott Wolf, Gerard Mayo, they need to justify firing Bill Belichick. They need to justify firing Bill. That doesn't mean they have to go on and win the Super Bowl, but they can't purposely tank the season after firing Bill, because then the whole world is going to be like, why the heck did you get rid of the greatest coach of all time to win 2 games, right? Like that just can't happen. Now, to the first part of the question, I don't necessarily believe that Jacoby Brissett's play on the field is going to dictate anything to do with whether he's starting games or not, because that's going to all be about Drake May's developmental plan. If Drake May is not supposed to play until Week 8, they should stick to the plan of, even if Jacoby Brissett's 1-7 and it is a disaster, you don't deter from the plan because of that, because it's a long-term plan. Right? We talk about it all the time. It's not about September 2024. It's about the next 5 to 10 years of the Patriots organization. Jacoby Brissett could throw 5 picks in Week 1, and if you are dead set that Drake May is not starting until Week 8, and I'm just using that as an arbitrary number, then you still can't go to Drake May in Week 2 just because Jacoby Brissett was terrible. You got to stick to the plan.
Absolutely. You can't panic put him in.
Right.
You can't panic put him in. And I'm with you. Whatever the plan is, I hope they stick. And there's some flexibility, obviously, within that. Maybe Week 6, he's making more progress than you thought and whatever. But you can't rush him in, because the thing I think people lose track of in this conversation the most, and I try to hammer this point as much as possible, once you make the switch, that is it.
Yeah.
Look at me, Patriots. That is it. You cannot go back.
Camera that's on right now.
Yeah, I should know that as the red light. Look at me.
You're the one that taught me all these things,
right?
And then you're just.
Well, because I was watching the show back from last week, and I realized I was staring down the barrel of this camera. Once they make the switch, that is it.
Yeah.
Drake May is the guy. We cannot go through this again of the will they, won't they with the quarterback room. It's a slightly different dynamic, obviously, Jacoby Brissett and Drake May versus Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones, but you've got to be sure it's time to make the move. So I don't think, and again, John, thanks for the question, I don't think we're going to see Jacoby Brissett for the full season. Drake May is going to play this year. But if there's a couple of rough weeks early on, but that's what they need to do to get Drake May ready or get the offensive line ready or get whatever ready, trust me, if the plan works, if the plan ultimately works and they're competitive, we're not going to be sitting here in 2028, Evan, bemoaning, oh, do you remember those first few weeks of 2024? Why couldn't they have just been a little more competitive? Like, we're not going to do that. Other shows might. We're not going to do that.
So I have to go back and figure out if it was because of injury, or if it was. So it sounds like it was because of
Are you talking about
injury.
Tua?
Yeah. So Tua in 2020, he had a string of starts and then he missed one game against the Jets. But it turns out that it was a thumb injury. In
he was
practice.
hurt. If he's hurt, he's hurt. But there was an issue there. Remember where?
So it was the late in games that he wasn't playing well.
Yeah.
That Flores kept on. I think it happened multiple times that Flores benched him for Ryan Fitzpatrick in the second half of games that he was playing poorly, but they kept on going back to Tua as the starter the following week,
and it became a big issue in the locker room.
It became a big issue. It was a big story.
Yeah, because you just don't do that.
Yeah, it might have messed with Tua early on. Obviously, he's played out of it and he's good enough that he's overcame it at this point, but. Early on, that was definitely.
Well, look at what happened. He had to go through a new coaching staff. They had to totally overhaul the offense. Maybe they needed to do that anyway. But
okay. So
also, let me know when you want to go to the.
Yes, I have a few more
YouTube
from.
I see them on YouTube, guys. We'll get to them.
I wanted to go through these because I asked for them. I don't want to ignore them.
Yeah.
So, Carrie, who's been a long-time listener of ours, so thank you for that. Other than quarterbacks, what is one player that could make the biggest difference for this team if he plays better than expected? So I have two answers to this, but I'll say one and then I'll let you answer before because we might be on the same page here.
Yeah.
So the most obvious answer to me is Chuks Okorafor. If Chuks Okorafor plays like a starting caliber left tackle, then all of a sudden the offensive line doesn't look as poor and they will start to piece that thing together a little bit better. That really does answer a lot of problems. Now, there's a lot of skepticism of whether or not he can be a starting caliber left tackle. Flipping sides is not just the only issue. He also wasn't playing particularly well at right tackle for the Pittsburgh in the games that he started last year. So he was a replacement level right tackle in Pittsburgh at the end. And now they're asking him to flip sides and then be a serviceable left tackle. So that is a big question mark, what if, whatever you want to call it. But my first answer would be Chuks. If he can come out and play a respectable left tackle, then their line looks a whole lot better.
Before I give mine, can I guess what your second is?
Sure.
Christian Gonzalez?
No.
Okay. So mine is, I don't know. I mean, honestly, either of the rookie receivers.
That was mine.
Okay, so one of, I guess I'll go Jalen Pope because he's a higher draft pick. But, like, if either of these guys can have, like, a Puka Nacua type of season, right? If either of these guys become a coverage dictator, it just opens everything else. And look, they'll still need to get it blocked. They'll still absolutely need to get it blocked, and that will be an issue. But Okorafor is probably a better answer to this question. But I would say if either of those rookie receivers can really emerge, it's not just being like nothing against Pop Douglas, but what Pop Douglas did last year, as much as we give him credit for his rookie season, it was a good rookie season. The hope is he continues to get better from there, and that's not his ceiling. I'm talking about if one of these guys can go above and beyond and not just have a good rookie season, but be one of the best receivers in football as a rookie, it would open up a lot.
Absolutely. It's the same old conversation we've had in the past about this, where you can have deficiencies on offense,
right?
But you also have to have strengths, of course. And it's from a personnel standpoint, taking coaching out of it for a second. It's, can you have quarterback play? Can you block it? And do you have receivers? I've always heard that you can do it with 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
If you have a great quarterback.
I think you can do with 2 out of 3 is... No, actually, that's not true. Never mind. Continue.
If you have a great quarterback and you have great receivers, you're the Cincinnati Bengals of a couple of years ago.
And now, kind of.
Well, their line is better now. But the Bengals team that made the Super Bowl had elite quarterback play and elite receiver play, and that allowed them to overcome a bad offensive line.
Bad's understating it.
Going all the way basically to the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl with a chance to win in an Aaron Donald quarterback hit away from potentially a game-winning drive in the Super Bowl, because you have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd at the time was still playing well. So you had these options. I saw something from, I think it was Mina Kimes, about the Green Bay Packers. and she was talking about their receiving core and how they don't necessarily have a number one, but they have 3 or 4 guys because a lot of love for Tavian Wicks. I think I'm saying that right. A lot of love for Wicks. So you have Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed is their big 3. Then you have Wicks, and they also have some young tight ends too. You know, Musgrave, Kraft, right? You know, those guys as well. But her point was that they've hit on the plan that we all probably assumed is what Belichick was trying to go after the last couple of years. Of we're not going to have a number one guy, but we're going to have 3 or 4 guys on the field all at the same time that can all make plays, and then it's
right.
You're just spreading the ball around at that point. Currently, and this could definitely change in the future, maybe Elliott Wolf next off season takes a bigger swing at this and goes out and gets a T. Higgins, a Brandon Ayuk, or whoever. But currently, the Patriots are building their receiver room a lot like, shocker, the Green Bay Packers, where if it's Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Kendrick Bourne, Pop Douglas is a lot like Watson, Dobbs, Reed, and Wicks, right? Now, it works there in Green Bay because Jordan Love is awesome.
Right.
And the coach is awesome in terms of offensive play calling.
Yeah,
right?
But
that's why it works.
Imagine how much more awesome it would be if they had Devontae Adams. And you can have all those guys and Devontae Adams, which is why I'd say, like, I don't know, there's some Ewing theory to it, but, like, at a certain point, I feel like a lot of these teams that do the wide receiver, like the wide receiver in aggregate, at a certain point, they just run into a team that has a loaded secondary. And they can cover them across the board. And eventually you're going to need that one guy. You know, for a year or two, can you get by on that? Sure. But if you're really trying to win a Super Bowl, be a contender, I think you need that guy. Even the Chiefs, people point to the Chiefs. Well, they have Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have that kind of wide receiver room and truly be a contender, you'd better have the second best tight end in the league currently.
In the league currently?
Yeah.
Well, he's the best tight end in the league currently.
Does he block?
He's the best tight end in the league.
George Kittle?
George,
yeah, I know. I'm just trying to start stuff.
George Kittle is declined a little bit.
He has, yeah.
So I agree with you.
I mean, it's the same as the Patriots. People point to, even when Edelman got hurt, they were still able to throw the ball. They didn't have a true number one receiver. No, but they had Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go get Rob Gronkowski, you can sell me on that wide receiver room. I like Jaheim Bell. Don't think he's quite that guy.
Yeah, I'm with you that the Packers, the model that the Packers are in right now, the way that they're structured right now, probably has a little bit of a ceiling to it.
Yeah.
That isn't necessarily Super Bowl winner.
And that's fine. Because
unless Jordan Love really takes another step into MVP caliber territory where he can carry them.
But and right now,
which he might, because good player.
The timeline's a little different because he obviously they didn't play him on his rookie contract. But as you're getting going with the rebuild year 1, year 2, that's fine. If you're just going to be a competitive team and you're still getting there, you're not going to get all the pieces at once. That's fine. I just hope they don't close the door. How many times have I talked about DK Metcalf or we talked about Amari Cooper, I think, last week. Now there's rumors that CD Lamb may want out of Dallas. I hope the door isn't closed on that move. I just hope they don't outright close the door on adding a guy like that. Because if you have the wide receiver by aggregate room, if you have the room of a bunch of really good number 2s, and then you add a number 1, well, now you're a top 5 offense in football.
On paper. Yeah, I don't...
Assuming you have the quarterback, assuming Drake May works out.
Yeah, I believe they would probably still go after it in terms of that top receiver just because they went after Calvin Ridley. So
sure.
I don't think that Elliott Wolf is operating on the same level of Green Bay where the joke is in Green Bay is always, the first couple of days of free agency doesn't exist in Green Bay. Free agency in Green Bay is the draft. Right, They are a draft-developed team. They have been for 100 years. They're not going to change their ways. They're not going to go out and make a Brandon Ayuk trade in Green Bay. That's just not happening. But Elliott Wolf has shown with the Calvin Ridley sweepstakes, with the pursuit of Calvin Ridley, that they would pay $25 million to a receiver.
Sure.
So maybe that is where he veers left, where his dad would have went right. We'll see. They got to close. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah.
But on paper, seeing how people talk about the Packers receiving core and then looking at the Patriots receiver room, that really is the best case scenario is that it turns into a situation like Green Bay has currently.
The best case scenario is it turns into a situation that Green Bay had 5 years ago with Devontae Adams.
Well, I suppose, but that's asking a lot. The best case scenario is that I think, because I expecting Jalen Polk and Javon Baker to be Devontae Adams is expecting a ton.
Well,
out of it, not only just in every way.
Sure,
It's
I
expecting
obviously,
a lot.
but I guess for this year, that's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Is that what you were saying?
For the next couple years.
Okay.
They're not, Devontae Adams, those guys don't just grow on trees. So I'm not going to sit here and say that anybody is going to just become Devontae Adams.
They become
overnight.
available quite a bit.
Oh, in terms of like them getting a player like
Yeah.
that, sure.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm
All
just
right.
saying, if you on paper the room that they have right now, it's probably best case scenario that it
Sure.
looks like something like what the Packers have put together.
When the hosts aren't listening right there, that's all.
Okay, a couple more offense questions, and then we'll flip it over to defense. Alex Kloss, is Calvin Anderson asks, is Calvin Anderson a dark horse to start at left tackle? Perfectly phrased, dark horse.
Yeah.
He's not. Is it a strong possibility? No. Is he a dark horse? Yeah. Is he a potential guy that could come out of the woodwork? Yes. The good thing about Calvin Anderson to me is that, and I know Chris Price from the Globe reported on the whole story in the offseason, just an absolutely ridiculously awful health situation that he had last year. I mean, really genuinely feel for him that he went through that. And you reading the story, you could not on any level expect him to play respectable football after a situation like that. No chance. So could they, in year 2 of the Calvin Anderson experience, get the guy they thought they were signing from Denver last offseason, but it just, because of the situation with his health, it didn't happen in year 1? Yeah, I think that's definitely in play. And there's also the circumstance of what kind of scheme they want to run, and we've talked about this a ton with the outside zone and the bootlegs and the wide zone actions and the stretch the field horizontally and all that kind of crap. He is an athletic tackle. He was an athletic tackle on paper, just in terms of his combine measurements and stuff like that from a few years ago, and he shows decent lateral movement and athletic ability on film when he's healthy. So all those things do add up to him being a decent fit in what they're trying to do. Is there a world where he pushes Chukwuekorofo in camp to be the left tackle? I do think that there is a world. What percentage chance do I put on it? It's probably still pretty low. But if you want to call him a dark horse candidate to make a push for a starting role this summer, I'm not going to be mad at that. I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd even go a little stronger than that, just because who's their backup left tackle right now? Who's the next guy? If they're going to play Caden Wallace on the right side, which is what we saw all spring.
Very good chance
and
to
that
be
can
the third
change.
tackle for sure.
Yeah.
That's a much higher percentage chance.
Well, so I guess I'd say I don't know about week 1. I don't know. They seem pretty stuck on Chukwuekorofo and seeing that thing through at least to the start of the season. I would not be surprised if we get a couple games of Calvin Anderson starting a left tackle for this team at some point during the season. Again, don't think it's going to be week 1.
Yeah.
Around October, November. If it's not going well with Chukwuekorofo, I feel like he's probably the next guy up. So, yeah, I absolutely think Calvin Anderson starting games at left tackle's in play.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, you want to move over to defense for a little bit, and then
Sure.
we'll get to the questions in the chat and the emails.
Yeah.
Oh, and I haven't been monitoring the phones because I've been looking at my phone. So we do have a couple phone
Okay.
calls as well. So we'll get to all you guys in a second, I promise. Phones have been waiting for a while. So let's actually take the phones because we've been waiting for a while here. All right. Patty's in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
What's up, guys? Pardon the noise, but I'm glad you guys were just talking about wide receivers because I got to say I love Alex's idea, but just hear me out too. Like, I kind of want to see this group, these guys, compete in training camp and just let the best 5 or 6 guys that are going to make the roster this year and stick with it. Because I don't think if you trade for a Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins, I mean, those guys are good, but are they really are they alphas? Are they elites? Are they number ones? I don't know. Like you guys have said too, like Ayuk he's probably going to be their number 2 option this year out of everybody. He'll be behind Christian McCaffrey, but for the most part, he's been the number 4 guy behind, him, Kittle, and in Debo for his whole career. But if there is a chance that they could get DK Metcalf, I mean, that guy, we know he's an alpha. And, I mean, if the way I see the season playing out, I can kind of see it playing out the way Drew's rookie year was, where, hopefully May wins the starting job out of camp. They tread water for about half the season, but the second half, they come on, they're competitive. He looks like he's taken a good step forward in his rookie year. And then next year, you try and get the best out of him by getting that alpha. And, hopefully those young guys, the two guys that they drafted and Pop, all grow together with him. And I love Bourne. Like, I hope he sticks around. I hope he's healthy this year. And I hope they keep that core going forward and add that alpha guy. That's all I got. You guys are the friggin' best. You know it. And see you next week.
Thanks, Patty. Appreciate the call,
I
as
learned
always.
something about Agawam the other day.
About Patty from Agawam?
No,
or
just about Agawam.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know they have the lowest zip code in the country? 01001. If you were to list all the zip codes numerically in the entire country.
Just like in terms of adding the numbers up?
No, in terms of like if you were to put them in order.
Oh, okay. I got
like
you.
counting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't know why I thought add the numbers up.
Yeah, well, I guess that's probably it too because they add up to 2.
Yeah.
But 01001, it's the first. It would be the first zip code. It's the lowest number.
I like that. To his questioner's point, I tend to agree with what he's saying, that I would like to see the organic growth, the growth from within first before we jump to trading significant draft capital for Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins. I'm not necessarily with him in terms of him underrating Brandon Ayuk. I think Brandon Ayuk is a hell of a football player.
Yeah.
But I feel similarly about T. Higgins, though, in terms of I'm not 100% sure that T. Higgins is a true alpha, is like a true dude, because his skill set to me is more, there's fewer boxes that he checks in terms of what he can do on the football field. It's more, I'm trying to look for the right word, but it's Brandon Ayuk does a bunch of things well, whereas
More specialized.
Specialized is probably the best word for it. T. Higgins is a big-bodied perimeter receiver. We can argue about if he's played XZ, whatever, in Cincinnati. He plays on the outside like 81% of the time. He's a big-bodied jump ball receiver. He is a better version, much better version than Patriots' version of Devontae Parker, but like he's a better version of like Dolphins' Devontae Parker, right? Whereas with Brandon Ayuk, he is one of the best route runners in the NFL. He's good with the ball in his hands. He is a very, very good player. And what we've seen with the San Francisco 49ers over the last couple of years, especially last year, is that as great, and take McCaffrey out of it for a second because he's a running back, just talking about their pass catchers at receiver and tight end.
McCaffrey catches passes, Evan. Come on.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of their receiver room, Brandon Ayuk's ability to just win on routes without the Kyle Shanahan of it all, without needing all of the bells and whistles. Like, Deebo Samuel, it needs to be schemed open, right? Like, Deebo Samuel needs help in order to be used properly and utilized in the right places on the field. Brandon Ayuk is one of those guys that can just line up across from somebody and just win on the route. That elevated the 49ers offense last year to almost a different level at times because they finally had like that coverage beater that just, it's man coverage third down on the outside. Brandon Ayuk can win the route.
Yeah.
Just by himself without Kyle Shanahan having to sequence together play action or move Debo around or whatever the case may be. So he's a very, very good player. I think Brandon Ayuk is probably a top 10 receiver in the NFL today. So I would trade. That's a trade, I guess, is a long-winded way of saying this. That's a trade that I don't think the Patriots can pass up being involved in, that market. Like, as a team that's starving for offensive firepower and offensive talent, you can't simply pass on an opportunity to trade for Brandon Ayuk because you want to see the kids play. You can't do that.
So, and maybe this is where I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but just to be clear, like, because I just said that whole thing, I hope they add the true number one. I hope they add the coverage dictator. I'm actually with Patty in that let's see what you have in the room. Let's also not jump in and make that big investment before we are sure Drake May is worth making the big investment. Let's see him for a year and make sure that he's worth, adding the pieces to. I said this on a show last night, and this is it's a little bit of a dense take, so you just kind of have to hang with me here. But I part of this I've said before. I do not think it is difficult to find an opportunity to add a coverage dictating receiver.
Yeah.
Because as much as we talk about Brandon Ayuk, we did this last year with DeAndre Hopkins. And now, like, Brandon Ayuk's available, Amari Cooper might be available, CeeDee Lamb might be, right? Like, every time we think it's the last guy, there's 3 more that suddenly want new contracts or aren't getting paid or whatever. So, I don't think you might pass on Brandon Ayuk specifically. I think there are going to be other chances to get this kind of player. Maybe not at the trade deadline, but, next offseason, right? And it's going to cost you something to get this guy. That's the reality, both in terms of money and draft capital, because they're not in for agency. You got to trade for him. But you can do that. The Patriots, assuming Drake May looks decent this year, are going to have the flexibility to trade a second-round pick and then give, high 20s millions of dollars a year to an elite wide receiver. They are going, assuming Drake May hits, they will be in a position to do that at some point. This is what I think the real challenge is in adding an elite receiver. You have to thread the needle and know when is the time to strike. You don't want to go too early and blow assets you can't afford to blow, or you don't want to go too early just because there's a shiny new toy who maybe isn't a great fit for what you want to do. I know Ayuk's a fit. I'm just saying, like, in general here.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to be too passive and say, oh, so-and-so, they'll be available, and then you wait too long, and now maybe the window's closed. You're not going to have the quarterback on the rookie contract to pay him, or now maybe your team's a little too good that those draft picks aren't worth as much as they were. That, to me, is the real challenge, and people are probably waiting for me to give the answer of exactly when to do it. I wish I could sit here and tell you that on March 17th, 2025, I'll use my birthday. That's not my birthday. I'm not going to use my birthday. March 17th, 2025.
Did you just forget your own birthday?
No, I didn't. I was like, I should use my birthday, and I realized I don't want to give my birthday on the air.
Why?
Why would I? On March 17th, 2025 at 10:31 a.m., Evan, the Patriots should trade a second-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and a future second for DK Metcalf. I wish I could sit here and give you the exact timeline. I can't.
You guys are making me too excited about DK Metcalf.
I know you can get mad at me for this when he doesn't come here.
Yeah.
I've deserved that. But the point is, that's the real challenge.
Yeah.
Is threading the needle and knowing when. I still think it's too early. Not just I want to see the receivers they have. That's part of it. I want to see Drake May.
Just the developmental plan. Yeah, I'm with you on this because we have examples that we can pull from the past.
Yeah.
So the Houston Texans are what we all are hoping the Patriots will be.
Absolutely.
The Houston Texans did what Patty said to do. They played Tank Dell. They played Nico Collins. They obviously played C.J. Stroud. And they recognized, wow, this is a young, budding core.
We have something here.
We have something here. Mostly C.J. Stroud. But Tank Dell was one of the best rookie receivers in the league before he got hurt. Nico Collins had a career year with a quarterback that could actually throw him the ball. And all of a sudden you look
tight end too, Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, all of a sudden you look at that receiving core and everybody's popping, everybody's playing well. So then this offseason, what does Nick Caserio do? He says, well, let's supplement it. Let's add on.
Right.
And they trade for Stephon Diggs. So they did it in 1 year.
Yeah.
That is an expedited rebuild process of, holy crap, we just hit on a franchise quarterback with the second overall pick. We don't necessarily need to wait 3 years to make this trade.
Right.
The other option is what the Buffalo Bills did with your boy Stephon Diggs. They waited until in between year 2 and year 3 with Josh Allen because it took 2 years for Josh Allen to truly emerge.
Prove he's worth the investment.
Develop. Year 1 for Josh Allen was not very good.
It's bad.
Year 2 was better. I think it was right. It was year 2 and between year 2 and year 3.
No,
but
he still wasn't good year 2 either. He was just good enough. The example I use, I think the Eagles make a lot more sense because Jalen Hurts kind of started proving himself.
The difficult part about the Eagles is that Jalen Hurts was not drafted to be the guy necessarily. So it's a little bit different just in terms of that.
I don't think it's good because we can use the Dolphins too, right? They went out and got Tyreek Hill for Tua year 3.
Year 3, they traded for Diggs, right? Yeah, Josh
Yeah.
Allen drafted in 18. Diggs got to the Bills in 2020.
Yeah.
So that, in between year 2 and year 3, that offseason is when they made the trade. So they recognized in year 2 of Josh Allen, he's on this upward trajectory. If we get him a number 1 receiver like Stephon Diggs, that could take him to the next level and put him over the top. If you ask me, the most likely scenario for the Patriots is probably the Bills situation, just because I don't know if Drake May is going to play as much or be as polished as C.J. Stroud was out of the gate. He probably has more of Josh Allen in him than C.J. Stroud. But with that being said, those are the 2 examples. One was after year 1, one was after year 2 for the quarterback, and they waited until they saw what they had with the QB. They saw what they had with the pieces within. Are we truly a Stephon Diggs, or, well, in both cases, a Stephon Diggs away from being a Super Bowl contender? They didn't get there at the same time. So that's definitely a possibility that this year they play the kids. They let the young guys, the first, the guys from the last 2 draft classes. I think, we forget a little bit that Pop Douglas is also in this. Douglas is also here as a year 2 guy. And they see what they have going into the off season, and maybe it is the time to pull the big trade for Brandon Ayuk, or sign a T. Higgins in free agency, or what have you, or maybe it's the next off season, and that's becomes DK Metcalf, right? In 2026 instead of 2025. So I'm with you both. I feel like there's a lot of layers to it of when exactly that trade is going to make the most sense. It's probably not this year. It's just probably not.
It's not. And again, is Brandon Ayuk a good player? Yes. You'll be able to get comparable players down the road. You'll have other chances.
Okay, Todd is in North Carolina. What's up, Todd? Oh, all right, you can call back, Todd. We left him on hold for a little while.
All right.
Call back, and we'll get you on, Todd. Go back to Twitter, and then we'll get into the I'm sorry, I'm never going to call it X. I'm just not. It's going to be Twitter. Sorry, Elon. All right. A couple more questions here, and then we'll get to what's going on in the chat. So this is I don't know what his actual name is. It's just a Twitter handle, so I'm not going to read it out loud because it's not safe for work, Alex. It's not
okay.
Nice. Do you anticipate Keon White ever becoming a big sack guy, like numbers wise, like a Matthew Judon, 10 plus sacks a year type of player? I'm going to say no. I'm not the highest on Keon White,
right.
So maybe this is a little bit of bias on my part, but I feel like he's definitely going to be more disruptor in his NFL career, pressure, numbers, and disruption, overall chaos, than he is going to ever be like a finisher that's going to put up a 15-sack season. I just don't necessarily see that those elements to the skill, the closing speed, that type of stuff that usually lends itself to being a double-digit sack guy. But that doesn't mean he can't be an effective player. I've always said the same thing about Keon White, that I still feel like the best comp from Patriots past, because it's always easy to just pull from guys from the past, is like a Trey Flowers, who I don't think ever had, or maybe he did flirt with like 10 sacks, but he was never like a Matthew Judon, who was putting up 15, 16 sacks in a season. I want to say that Trey Flowers is high with the Patriots is like 8 or 9.
I'd look, his Pro Football Reference page is down. Here we go. He had 7.5 in 2018.
Yeah.
But he was consistent. He missed his first year, right? He tore his ACL. 7, 6.5, 7.5, 7.
So if you look at his quarterback pressures, like on PFF, quarterback hits, hurries, he was always higher on those. Like I believe his breakout year was at 17 or 18 with the Patriots. I always forget. Whichever year
17?
Whichever year that was.
16.
So that long ago? Jeez.
He had 7 sacks in 16.
Yeah, so he had 7 sacks, but he had something like 65 quarterback pressures. It was high amongst the edge defenders in the league. So my point being is that I think Keon White could be a pressures guy, but not necessarily a sack guy. I don't necessarily see him being a double-digit sack guy.
Yeah, I was honestly going to go with a current Patriot in Dietrich Wise, and I think he'll be a little more disruptive than that, but that kind of player, the guy that creates sacks more than gets them himself, if that makes sense. Like, we saw Keon White do this a lot early last year, and then he had that concussion, and I think it kind of threw him off a little bit.
Yeah.
We've seen we saw him. He was able to force the quarterback out of the pocket and get to the quarterback and be the first one there and force him off his spot. And that's where you hope a guy like Matthew Judon or whoever takes over that spot next. Because even if Judon's here this year, I mean, you hope Keon White's here long beyond Matthew Judon. That the guy on the other side is kind of cleaning up, especially if they're going to play this more aggressive brand of defense. So I think Keon White's more of a disruptor than anything else.
Yeah.
And that may not always show up in the regular box score, but like you said, pressures. So they have, I just pulled it up. In 2018, Trey Flowers had 78 pressures.
Yeah, I knew it was high. I was even lowballed him.
He had 77 and 17 and 78 and 18. So
that's high. That's among top 10, top 15 in the league at the position. Oh, so not at 7.5 sacks or 7 sacks,
right.
but 78 pressures that's causing a lot of stress on the quarterback.
It might not be showing up in the stat sheet, but and this will be an interesting one actually, because a big part of Bill Belichick's philosophy was a throwaway is as good as a sack.
Yeah.
And, don't risk getting a penalty or whatever, losing contain. The quarterback throws the ball away, the defense won the play. Is that going to continue with this new, more aggressive DeMarcus Covington defense? That'll, we'll see. But there, in this system, generally, if you can just get the quarterback off his spot and aggravate him, you've done your job. And that is, I think, the kind of player Keon White projects to be.
So I'm going to go a little nerd on you for a second. So this has been an age-old debate between the nerds.
Yeah.
Sacks versus pressures, and are sacks overrated just in terms of their impact, but not necessarily that you can't get no pressure. We're just saying, how much does a pressure, how much weighted more is a sack than a pressure, right, in terms of its impact on the game?
Well, I'd rather the offense be losing yards.
So
personally,
here's the argument on the other side. The argument for the nerd side of things and let me be clear. We, and I say we as in the nerds, still believe a sack is more impactful than a pressure.
Good.
Okay? No one's saying that it isn't. But
for now.
The reason why pressure metrics have become more popular, the biggest reason I would say is that what we've seen statistically is that when the ball under pressure is put in the air, you're more likely to cause a turnover, right? Like an interception, obviously. Right. So pressures cause disruption. Disruption causes turnovers. So therefore, if you get the ball in play, as a baseball term, if you put the ball in play, but you're under pressure when you put the ball in play, not only are you more likely to turn the ball over, you're also more likely to have a catastrophic turnover, like a pick six.
Right.
So that's the biggest thing that makes pressures when you sack somebody. And yes, there are strip sacks.
I was going to say, boy, the nerds are going to lose it when they learn about strip sacks.
Strip sacks is a whole,
love a good strip
that's
sack.
why a sack is still more important.
Yeah.
Right. Than a pressure, is because strip sacks exist. But when you just take a sack, then you are looking at, yes, it's a negative yardage, but you're not causing a turnover.
So this is where I get it. This is where I have my problem with the nerds, because in theory, if you put it out on a spreadsheet, that all makes sense.
Yes.
What happens when you're playing Patrick Mahomes, who's immune to pressure?
There
and
are
you
certain
just have
quarterbacks that
you
are
have to
immune to
get him to the ground to end the play.
Yep.
I would rather just give me a win. Give me a win on the play. Sack the quarterback, loss of yards, all that. Now there's certain quarterbacks who want to play differently. Some quarterbacks, we talk about this with Lamar Jackson, where you have to be really careful, and going all out for the sack isn't necessarily the best thing, because if he breaks contain, goodbye, right? So I just think we don't need to do the whole nerds versus whatever thing, but I just think generalizing it like that is so it's so tough, because the situation matters. Except the nerds in baseball don't want the ball put in play.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, just the three true outcomes: home run, walk, strikeout.
Not that this is a baseball show, and my depth of knowledge of baseball nerdom is not nearly as high as football
that's like
nerdom.
an OG nerdom.
That is crazy to me, because the whole idea of it in football is that putting the ball in play, to use that term again, there are more likely outcomes that mistakes could happen with the ball in play. Like in baseball, if you put the ball in play, yes, you could ground out to the shortstop, but the shortstop could also throw it 10 feet over the first baseman's head, whereas if you strike out, you have no chance of that happening.
The difference is, and again, we're not a baseball show, but just to educate.
Honestly, the baseball this is the problem with the baseball nerds. They're bad at nerding. They don't know what they want.
Well, but here's the way they look at it. If you get a single, great.
Yeah.
But the odds of somebody driving you in from first are incredibly low. Because now you need another hit, and they hate small ball. They hate moving a guy over. So their philosophy is swing for the fences, because either you're going to strike out, whatever, you're probably going to get out anyway if you put the ball in play, right? 75% of the time, ball's been in play, it's an out. If you're going to swing for the fences, you're either going to strike out anyway, you're going to hit a home run, so you score. They talk about 3 true outcomes, or you walk because more pitchers throw more balls than strikes. And then I guess the consolation is, well, if you swing for the fences, you make contact, you don't hit a home run, maybe you get a double, and now it's easier to drive you in. They have zero interest in singles. And on the flip side, the pitching nerds don't want the ball in play either, because if you're not putting the ball in play, you know what you get to do? You get to build a whole lineup of sluggers, and it doesn't matter what positions they play. Because if the pitcher's pitching not to contact, they never have to field.
It's just, to me, that is bad nerdom.
Well,
those
are your people.
It doesn't. No. The baseball nerds are on a whole different.
Those are the founding fathers.
No,
those are your.
And by the founding fathers, you mean that they have it all wrong.
Those are your forefathers, Evan.
No, they don't make any sense.
Bill James. This is Bill
so
James. He is the founder of all of this.
How you would prefer a strikeout over putting the ball in play in baseball is just logically just makes no sense. Like, you're guaranteed an out with a strikeout. You're not guaranteed to get out if you put the ball in play.
Well, I would say, you sack the quarterback,
yes,
you're guaranteed a loss.
Yes.
You let him put the ball in the air, anything's still possible. So I'll take the sack.
Oh my God.
For the same logic you just used.
You're not wrong. And thankfully the football nerds recognize that pressure and causing disruption on the quarterback. We have obviously data that directly tells you that any quarterback from Patrick Mahomes to Tom Brady to Mac Jones is worse under pressure than with no pressure in a clean pocket.
Yeah.
Duh. Right? But it's not just duh. Like, it is a big gap. Like,
it's common sense.
We're talking about the league average passer rating from a clean pocket being like high 90s versus the league average passer rating while under pressure being in like the 50s or the low 60s, right? We're talking about a huge gap between those two things. So that's why pressure, even if it's not a sack, is still so much better than nothing, right? Is because any quarterback from Mahomes on down is going to be worse under pressure.
Right.
All right. We've done enough nerdom for today. And the baseball nerds, like, just come back to us, okay? Last question here from the Twitter poll, and then we can get to everybody else. What can we expect from cornerback Isaiah Bolden this year? And in the summer, is he going to be a full-time special teamer? This is a very, very popular question. People want to know about Isaiah Bolden. So Isaiah,
he was popular last year, too, before he got hurt.
I think that's why people want to know about Isaiah Bolden, because until that Green Bay game, not only was there buzz in camp, but he played well against Houston. Had some good plays on the ball as well, if I remember correctly, in that first preseason game. He's an interesting player because, yes, he has a very, very good chance to be a core contributor on special teams for a while. Like a real impact player, potentially. He's got size, he's got speed, he's got tackling ability. He's got all the tools to be a really good special teamer. And then on top of that, he's got size, he's got speed, and he's got some athleticism and skill that maybe he can make it as a corner. They've played him at slot. They've played him outside. They're trying to find a role for him on defense. My guess is that for now, he'll be a utility man on defense. That's probably the 4th or 5th corner on the depth chart and a core special teamer. But I don't necessarily have him in the lock territory yet. Like I moved Alex Austin over to the lock column. But I think Isaiah Bolden has a high probability of being on the roster.
What's going to be big for him, in my mind, is how he looks in the slot. Because as much as I like this cornerback room, they're a little thin in the slot, especially if Jonathan Jones is still going to play on the boundary, because now it's Marcus Jones and then Sean Wade.
Yeah.
So, like you said, if Isaiah Bolden proves he can be your backup slot corner, we know he can give you reps and depth on the boundary, maybe play a little safety, and he's going to play on special teams. That's how you make the team, is you do all these different things. So I think he's probably best as a boundary corner. I think that's where he should play the most. But he's not going to make – I mean, Gonzalez, John Jonesby's playing out there, Alex Austin, Marco Wilson. There's not a ton of reps available at boundary corner. So he buys some time on that, being able to give them depth in the slot, being able to give them productive special teams play. That's how he's going to make the team. So I'm really watching him in the slot this summer.
I'm encouraged a little bit by the fact that they are trying some bigger bodies in the slot than what they've used in the past.
That's a good point.
Because, yes, there's still the world where you're going to have to cover the jitterbug slot receiver, the Julian Edelman, Wes Welker slot receiver.
Well, they have to play the Dolphins twice a year.
Yeah, or the speed slot receiver,
Yeah.
the vertical speed slot receiver. Those guys exist still across the league, and you're going to have to worry about that in division. You just mentioned the Dolphins. Right. The Bills have Khalil Shakur, who I think is going to be a breakout player for them potentially this year. The Jets.
Well, Josh Allen will get all the credit for that. But
the Jets. I feel like they do have someone on their roster like that, and I'm blanking.
Did they re-sign Jamison Crowder again?
No, I don't think it's him, but they might not.
No, it sounds right. Hang on.
Yeah,
I'll
I feel like they do have somebody. I know they traded Elijah Moore, but it was somebody like that.
Oh, they drafted Malachi Corley.
Thank you, Malachi Corley, who's Debo light, he's thicker. Marcus Jones might have a tough time tackling Malachi Corley. So
Jamison Crowder, by the way, still in the NFL. Good for him. He's only 31.
Anyways, not necessarily being super reliant on the Miles Bryant, Marcus Jones body type in the slot, and having that ability, they're going to play some big nickel and big dime where it might be a Kyle Duggar or a Jabril Peppers or a Marty Mapu who's playing that role, that star role. But it also could be an Isaiah Bolden or it could be a Sean Wade, somebody that has a little bit more size and ability to him. It's so important at that position, I think, because for two reasons. One, the slot receiver, you have to tackle those guys a lot with the ball in their hands. And two, you're at the point of attack in the run game a lot because you're basically the strong side linebacker, right? Like that. That's basically the role that you're playing in a nickel or dime defense. So having somebody there that's got a little bit more size and a little bit more play strength is not necessarily a bad thing. Yes, part of it was out of these are the guys on the team. Like Marcus Jones, Miles Bryant, Jonathan Jones, those were the guys on the team. But it was also because teams try to emulate the Patriots and they try to get Edelmans and Welkers and those types of guys in the slot. Now you're seeing guys that are a little bit bigger, that have ball carrying skill, the Debo types. And now all of a sudden it's a little bit more of a position where even safeties have played a lot more in the slot because of this. So I'm looking forward to seeing Isaiah Bolden in the slot too, because maybe he will give them a different body type in there if they want to go that direction.
Sure.
And no Miles Bryant. I know people didn't like Miles Bryant, but that's a whole. He played a ton of snaps for this team last year.
We are a pro Miles Bryant show. We always have been. That, to me, is the ideal role for Marcus Jones.
Yeah.
Is that Jonathan Jones is in the slot full-time. You have a guy like Isaiah Bolden or Sean Wade who can kind of give you some snaps in the slot, and then Marcus Jones is in the slot in certain matchups and maybe playing nickel or safety in certain matchups.
Yes, absolutely.
And obviously returning kicks.
All right, William is in Philly. What's up, William?
Hey, Evan, how you doing?
Good.
All right. How you doing, Alex?
Hey.
All right. I have two takes. I'm sitting here listening to you two gentlemen, and first of all, y'all do an outstanding job.
Thank
Let
you.
me just get right to it, okay? Just two takes, and I'm gonna get out your way, okay?
All good.
First and foremost, I'm listening to y'all talk about wide receiver, and I'm y'all really blowing my mind with it. I'm really shocked at both of you. You already know what it looks like without a number one wide receiver. It's time, fellas. Not 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027. Nah. And I'm trying to figure out how you're going to get DK Metcalf. So you got to give a first-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. So how's that going to work? And then you got Evan talking about getting a tackle in the draft next year. And the second take, too, is this, Evan. If the Patriots have the number one pick or number two pick, I'm sorry, Will Johnson, Madison Graham, Travis Hunter, I forgot the edge rusher I think he's from Texas, whatever, James, whatever, and then the wide receiver from Arizona, everybody wants T-Mac. I'm sorry, Evan. I ain't doing that because guess what? They supposed to got that tackle this year, man. Period. They waited to the third round and played around, okay? Because Ellen Wolf want to be like his daddy and unfortunately want to build a team like the Packers. No, this is the New England Patriots. We ain't got time. We wasting time, fellas. We're 5 years in now. and you still don't have your blue chip talents for each piece. The tackle, the receiver, we need even another corner. I don't want to see Jonathan Jones get mauled by T. Higgins. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want him on the boundary. Put him back in the nickel where he belong at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it, gentlemen.
I love the fire,
All right.
William. I always love the energy. Just to be fair, and
Yeah.
he's made a lot of really good points. I'm not trying to, completely go at him, but just to be fair, it's not year 5 for Elliott Wolf and
Right.
Gerard Mayo. It's year 1. Right?
I get it.
We
No,
hit the
I get
reset
it.
button, but I hear what he's
Yeah.
saying. So the biggest thing with receiver, and I am going to disagree with people in the draft about this. I am going to tell you that they should draft a tackle. You all are going to, not everybody, I shouldn't group everyone together.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of Williams that are going to tell me I'm crazy, right? And he just,
I don't know how much we'll hear about James Pierce, though. So Tennessee, James Pierce, edge rusher.
yeah, there's a lot of names that he threw at us that
Yeah.
also make sense.
I can give you a little breakdown.
Okay, but everybody always tells you the same thing about tackles. It's like getting socks and underwear for Christmas, right? It's not the shiny new toy. It's not the PS5, right? It's not what you really want. But at the end of the day, it's something that every single person on planet Earth needs socks and underwear, right? It's what you need. Sometimes it's not what you want, it's what you need. And if they go into next offseason and they have no answer at left tackle, but they have some young receivers in Jalen Polk and Javon Baker and Pop Douglas who are emerging, and they have an opportunity to go out in free agency or in a trade where it's far more likely that you're going to address receiver than it is tackle.
Yeah.
Premium left tackles, like starting caliber, good left tackles, do not hit the open market too often because there are not enough of them.
Right.
There's not enough supply to meet the demand. So if you have if you're a team that has a very, very good left tackle, you don't just let that guy walk out the door. So in order to find that type of player, it's much easier to find the receiver in the veteran market, trade free agency, than the tackle. So draft the tackle, trade for the receiver, everybody's happy.
And to what the caller said, well, what if you have to give up your first-round pick to get the receiver? Most of these receivers have gone for second-round picks. That's just kind of been the price. Worst case scenario, if you need to up the offer, you do essentially what the Vikings did this year. You use your second-round pick and some more assets to trade up late into the first, and then you move that pick for the receiver.
I understand that we all want the Patriots to have the superstar receiver. We all want that guy. We've all wanted that guy for years, really since Gronkowski became aging. Gronkowski started to break down, right? Towards the end of his career here, 18. With the Patriots, they've been searching for it, and we've wanted it, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying don't get it. I'm just saying get it in a different way.
Right, right.
Get it through the veteran market, draft the tackle. Those are where you get the tackles from. You can't get the tackle in free agency. Like even last year, and we clamored for them to sign one of the named tackles in free agency last year. The McGlincheys, the McGarrys. I still think that those guys we would have been better off. The Patriots would have been better off in the long term signing one of those players. But those guys are not blue chip tackles. Those guys are serviceable NFL players, but they are not even very good tackles. They're probably like tier 3, tier 4 tackles. If you want a tier 1, tier 2 tackle, you need to draft that guy. That's the bottom line. I don't have a ton, and it's early, so we'll see. I don't have a ton of interest in Travis Hunter. Am I wrong for that?
if you're looking at Travis Hunter and thinking he's going to play in the NFL like he plays in college,
like Marcus Jones, but on steroids.
Right. Like
not literally on steroids.
But like
figuratively.
He's not going to play entirely on offense if you try to do that, one is physically it's going to be too much, and two, he's a great player, but there's still some development needed, and we'll see what he does this year. But especially as a receiver, he needs to get the work in, and if he's splitting all that time between the two sides of the ball, he'll never fully master one position. And if you're using a pick on a player that high, you want a guy that's going to master a position. So
he's a corner.
And he is a much better corner than receiver. I think he is a corner at the next level. Now, if you're somebody who believes, and there is an argument to be made, I'm not in this boat, but if you're somebody who believes the Patriots' first-round pick should be a corner, Travis Hunter's in the conversation. It's him and Will Johnson from Michigan. Will Johnson's the corner that everybody's all hot and bothered about this year.
They love him.
I think they're right. I think the draft people love him too. He can play.
Yeah.
He can play. He's really good.
He's probably more of that typical shutdown corner.
He's a big body.
Travis
physical.
Hunter's a playmaking corner.
Yeah.
He's gonna, not to. No one's Deion Sanders, but he's like Will Johnson reminds me more of like a Revis, whereas
Travis
Hunter's more like
Trayvon
Deion.
Diggs.
Sure,
Trayvon Diggs. That's
probably
the
a
comp.
probably a more apt comp than maybe the greatest quarterback of all time.
Right. Will Johnson's a little more physical. He's probably honestly there's you got to modernize this.
Yeah.
There are some shades of like Aqib Talib.
Yeah.
In there, it's not a perfect comp, but I got a whole season to figure these guys out.
Yeah. That's not bad. I could see that.
If you want a corner, like if you're sitting here saying I want the Patriots to take a corner in the first round, there's certainly an argument to be made for Travis Hunter. If you're sitting there saying Travis Hunter's going to play on both sides of the ball and he's going to be the first two-way All-Pro since like teams only had 30 players on the roster, no, you're kidding yourself. That just can't be done in the NFL. It's not going to be done in the NFL.
Hey Alex.
Yes.
You're hosting for July 4th.
I am.
You're hosting me for July 4th.
I had meant to ask you about that after the show. Because last year you were wishy-washy about it.
I think it rained.
Game time decision.
No.
We still had a good time even though it rained.
This year we're 100% in.
All right.
So since you're hosting for July 4th, there's always room for one more when you snag a sectional during the Bob's Discount Furniture for the 4th celebration. Shop your choice of featured packed sectionals starting at just $7.99 with everything you need to party in style this 4th of July, like built-in bookshelves, pop-up sleepers, charging ports, and cup holders. So stop by and get ready for the 4th with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. Now, we're looking forward to
I'm pretty sure the couch we'll be sitting on is actually from Bob's.
I love that. We're looking forward to coming. Our couch is from Bob's, too.
There you go.
And we have quite the setup here, not to brag, but July 4th we're coming to hold with you, and we'll be at the beach, and then we're going to Martha's Vineyard for the week following that. So we have a nice little beach vacation coming up.
So next week's the week we don't have a show.
Next week, that's good point. So next week we will not have a show. This is my annual trip to Martha's Vineyard. Really quickly, and then we'll get back to the questions in the YouTube chat. Is where I want to go next. Last year, on our trip to the vineyard in July that we take every year, I proposed. Yep. This year we're not getting married this summer. We're gonna get married next summer. So it's not going to be anywhere near as good. Like, so what can I pull out of my rear end it's not going to be engagement and it's not going to be wedding. So It's like, this is that buffer year in between.
And the year before you got a job, because the year before was when the Patriots officially offered you the job.
But she didn't love that though, because I was like negotiating the job on vacation. But in general, this one is going to be out of like this 3-year stretch for us. Yeah. This is going to be like this weird middle.
This is the down year.
Yeah, this is the down year. It's like next year is going to be a wedding. This past year was engagement. So maybe I'll pull something out, like at least like a romantic dinner or something like that.
I would hope you figure at least a dinner out. Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking, and again, I know nobody cares about this. I was kind of thinking of like maybe like not like redoing the whole engagement, but like doing the same like night that we did last year, same dinner spot, same walk on the beach, like that whole thing.
You got to pull out another ring though.
Just kind of like relive it a little bit. Maybe I'll take the ring off her finger and like put it back on or something.
No, you got to give her another ring.
Yeah, right. I can barely afford the one she has. All right, what's the YouTube chat?
All right, so I'm just gonna read bottom up here. Well, there's a Chiefs fan in there that's spamming this. And
oh God, come on!
Keep jumping on him, guys. I'll rephrase this question a little bit. If Matthew Judon does get traded before the season, who takes over that role?
Well, we talked about him a little bit earlier. I would assume it's probably Keon White.
Yeah.
That would see the most of those opportunities, but maybe they view that Joshua Uche can take on a little bit more of an increased workload if they do change the mechanics of how they do things up front. If they're more aggressive, if they're more 4 down, maybe he has that ability where we're not necessarily as worried about him setting the edge against the run, and he can take on a bigger role in a contract year, signing that 1-year bet on me deal, I'm sure Joshua Uche would be up for that. So
Right.
maybe that potentially could be there. But if they trade Judon, I would think that the guy they want to emerge from the rough there would be Keon White.
All right. Do you think J.C. Jackson is still in the mix for the Patriots?
No, I do not.
Because that was the report initially, was that he might be back. I think I'm with you. I think these young guys starting to emerge, just they have the bodies. They have the bodies. They're going to move on from one or two NFL caliber players at that position. I don't think they need. I don't think they need to do the J.C. Jackson experiment again.
Yep.
Somebody asked if we can get a Chad Ryland minute.
Sure.
I mean, nothing's changed. Like, I still would like to see them bring in another kicker. These UFL guys are still out there. They'll probably sign closer to camp. I still believe there's a good chance the Patriots' Week 1 kicker is not currently on the roster. There's not going to be, unless they sign somebody, there's not going to be updates there until they start kicking footballs at the end of the month.
Yep. Agreed.
So that's a tough one.
That's a 30 seconds, which is fine.
Yeah. Let's see here. Somebody said I look like Atticus Schaefer. I don't know who that is. I don't know if I should be upset about that. Sorry, I'm scrolling through here. What else do we got? I mean, that's more like a trivia question. How many games did Brissett win for the? Oh, wait, what? How many games did Brissett win for the Colts last year? None. He wasn't there. If the line is as bad as it was last year, would you rule out sitting Drake May for the entire season?
The line was as bad as it was last year. Would I rule it out? Yes, I would rule it out, but that's going to be unpopular. You know, I see the logic in probably start sitting him the entire year at that point. I just really feel I'm so confident in his ability, and I want to stress this, and you can vouch here. I was a Drake May guy before the Patriots drafted him.
Yes.
Like, I don't want people to come off like I now believe in him even more because he's a Patriot.
When you watched Josh Downs for last year's draft, you were excited about Drake May.
I just am a real believer in Drake May's talent, that it would be a bummer just to have to sit him the entire year.
Yeah.
Because of things out of his control. If he's behind the scenes, if he's not ready, that's a totally different story. I just don't think that's going to be the story. The story is going to be the line stinks. We're still trying to figure this whole thing out. Throwing a rookie quarterback behind a bad line is a death sentence. Let's not do it. I don't think the story is going to be related to Drake May's talent, and I think it would be a bummer that they have to sit him the whole year, but I see the logic.
I'd be very surprised if he doesn't play all year.
Yeah.
Could the line be as bad as last year? Yes. And could it delay the process? Absolutely. But I think at a certain point they're going to want to get him on the field because you want to know what you're working with going into next offseason at the very least. All right, kind of related. Well, I'll clean this one up again, but basically, what are the chances 3 or more quarterbacks start games for the Patriots this year? We think it's going to be 2. I feel pretty good that it'll be 2.
Yeah.
So 2.5 quarterbacks to start games for the Patriots here, Evan. Over or under?
I'm taking the under, but because of injuries in the league nowadays at that position, it's always possible.
Taking the over because of the offensive line and injuries.
Yeah, so Brissett and Drake may get hurt, and they have to play a third
Let me ask you this, too, because you talked about
that's disaster zone
well,
if that happens.
I won't go quite that far.
Yeah.
You talked about this earlier. You want them to stick to the plan for Drake May, and he may need 4 or 5 weeks to get ready.
I hear what you're saying.
What if Jacoby Brissett gets hurt week 1?
Zippy.
What if he's not here? Would you start Joe Milton?
That's where it gets dicey, and I honestly feel the top headline is Drake May this summer. No one's disputing that. I'm really interested in Zappy versus Joe Milton though too. Like I feel like that's almost not as fun, but it's like it's still fun.
It's sneaky important because of the exact scenario we're laying out. And the other thing is, there's a good chance they look at both of them and say, "We'll go find another version of Nathan Rourke or Will Greer or Matt Corral."
Or there's a chance that they look at both of them and say, "You guys are going to get through waivers, and we're going to sign you to the practice squad, just like they did with Bailey Zappi last year."
So, and you'd think Zappi didn't have a great year last year. They can get him to the practice squad after they did, but I guess so. To the point of, say Zappi's not an option. Let's say they trade him.
Yeah.
Would you start? Because if it's Joe Milton, now you have to deal with you're starting a different rookie.
No, I think you have to. I don't think you can do that.
So would you start Drake May, or would you go sign Nathan Rourke?
Yeah, maybe
or Nathan Rourke.
Yeah,
equivalent?
maybe go sign. Who was the guy that started games for the Vikings last year? That started
Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, Josh Dobbs.
He's going to make a team. Like
I know, but I'm just
no. You're talking about Nathan Rourke, Will Greer, Trace McSorley.
Ugh.
Throw it on a dime,
Ugh.
like that kind of guy. That kind of guy, or do you rush Drake May?
I probably rush Drake May, but I already gave my Drake May
Yeah.
opinion, so I'd probably rush Drake May at that point.
All right. Given the coaching staff for the offense is new to the Patriots,
Yes.
how difficult is it for them to gauge the talent on the roster given the poor offensive coaching the last couple of years?
It's a fair question. To me, I think the hardest part, honestly, is the receivers that are already on the team that had such terrible quarterback play last year. It's Pop Douglas. You mentioned him earlier that he had a good rookie season, but it was just a good rookie season. It wasn't this crazy season. Okay, but injuries aside, his durability aside, which is a big part of the equation with him, is he a 800-yard rookie receiver if he has a quarterback that can actually throw him the ball? You know what I mean?
Right,
There's differences there. That's where I think the biggest, probably the most difficult part is. Like, blocking is blocking. Like, you can either block the guy in front of you or you can't. It doesn't really matter a whole lot who's behind you in terms of evaluating the personnel in that respect. Maybe more so for the tackles, just because of the depth of the pocket and mobility and all that kind of stuff. But I think in general, you can look at film and say, this guy can block people or he can't block people.
Right.
Now, in terms of receiver, you're sometimes open when it doesn't look like you're open. You're sometimes, if you have a great ball, then there's a play there to be made that might not necessarily be made if the quarterback's not aggressive. He's not attacking tight windows. He doesn't have the ability to attack tight windows. And there's also the element of scramble drill. Like, if Drake May comes in and he adds scramble drill to the equation, well, now all of a sudden you have a whole different, like, unlocked yardage capability, especially for a guy like Pop, I would say, who can, get open like a jitterbug and make those. You remember in Dallas when he, like those types of plays, like that, those types of plays exist now in droves if Drake May is your quarterback, where they didn't before. So I think for receivers, it does matter a lot.
But I think that's what training camp is for. Like, they'll know by the start of the season. There's a little bit of catch up there, but it's nothing. I don't think it's any different than any new coaching staff coming in and taking over a team. All right, I'm going to take Drake May out of this question because obviously he would be your answer. Which Patriots player are you the most excited to watch this year? Not necessarily be the best. Who are you the most excited to watch this year? I'm going to take Drake May out of the equation.
Can we take all the rookies out? Because, like, Polk and Baker probably are.
Yeah, all right.
Too.
We can take the rookies out.
I would say Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
I'm just really looking forward to seeing him back out there, and also, of course, seeing if that month if he's going to be that guy forever, like every game for 17 weeks or 18 weeks. Then they've got an all-pro caliber corner.
Yeah, he has a chance to turn into a blue chip player.
Yeah,
and that's what's cool. If you're gonna say him, well, I guess you said no rookies. I'd say Jaheim Bell.
Yeah,
this is gonna board the. I popped Douglas. I guess the easy answer, but like sneaky answer, this is gonna bug the crap out of you. Antonio Gibson.
You're excited to watch Antonio Gibson.
220-pound running back that can run a 4.4. Yeah, there might be some fun there in this scheme.
Throw a parade
in this system.
It looked like the Panthers parade.
He might do some fun things.
Yeah.
He might do some fun things.
Okay.
Dark horse answer. All right, you're going to hate this question.
Yep. I don't know. I don't even know what the question is.
This is not about the Patriots.
Oh, okay.
What was the first time the two of us worked together? And I'm going to read this word for word because it's hilarious.
Oh.
What did you both see in the other that made you think this combo is going to work?
The first time we worked together was a draft show.
You came on as a guest.
I came on as a guest. I was still working at SI in New York at the time, and I was in my my apartment, I believe, doing the show.
We did it. We were doing Zoom shows, Skype shows before the pandemic.
Before it was cool.
Right.
Yeah.
We were doing that way back at CLS.
Before remotes were like the thing to do.
That show's somewhere. It's us breaking down.
It is definitely somewhere.
The 2018 draft class.
18 or 19.
18. It was Wynn. It was Isaiah Wynn.
Yeah, it was 18 because I ended up moving back to Boston for the 18 season, but I wasn't there for the draft, the training camp. My first training camp was 19, even though my first season covered.
You were there for part of camp in 18.
Very briefly, like to the very end.
Because So and then we obviously started together that season. And I don't know if I've ever told a story on the air. You know this.
Yes.
So, like, to the second part of the question, that's why it's so funny, is, like, I thought going into that year I was going to be, like, the guy for that company covering the Patriots, and you were kind of added late. See, I don't want to throw people under the bus. Everybody knows it's CLNS.
Company.
You were kind of added late, and it kind of hit me as like, oh, I thought this was my job. Now here comes this guy, and he's got this big Twitter following. He's coming from New York, and, you know, what's going to happen? And then obviously it worked out. But, yeah.
I feel like we
thought you were trying to Brady Bledsoe me.
You remember when James Harrison said that he wanted to hate Tom Brady?
Yeah.
And I'm not comparing myself to Tom Brady, but I'm just saying, like, you know, it's kind of like one of those situations where I came into it thinking, oh, you know, this is my competition. You came into it. Obviously, it was a weird situation for you, as you just laid out.
I remember going back to that Drew Bledsoe line of, like, I'm excited to compete for my job.
Yeah. And then as it turned out, like, a week in, we both realized, like, oh, we could just do this together.
Yeah,
and
we just, like, hit. Well, because so Evan was, like, petrified of being on camera.
Yes. I never really had done it before in, like, a large
volume.
And
he didn't want to do any video editing, any social media. So
yes,
somebody had to do all the other stuff. But the reality was they needed somebody to do that, so that kept me around, and we put the pieces together.
I don't want to sound like too much of a diva. You may with all the editing and stuff. I
mean, you were a little bit of a diva.
But the reason why I didn't want to do it was because I didn't want to open the door of, like, I could do this.
I get that.
And then all of a sudden it's your job, right? You know, and you're expected to do it on a regular
basis. You're a little bit of a diva.
Looking back on it, a little bit of a diva. Still am a little bit of a diva. If we're going to be honest.
Well, look, one of us every time was carrying the equipment to their car. Let's put it that way.
And I sometimes I would walk with you to chat, but still make you carry. I was.
It all obviously worked out.
Yeah,
it all obviously.
I was a little
out.
bit of an a-hole. I'm not gonna deny it. Still am.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
All right, that was pretty much it for the questions in the chat. I think,
there's a few emails.
We're gonna get more questions about that story now, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was. Honestly, you know, we went to college together, but we weren't friends in college.
I actually made Evan quit college radio.
Yeah, so
not on purpose.
So I don't want to tell the whole story because I'm going on with Mike, and I'm going to
tell
this story. I'm literally doing Mike's podcast.
Cadlick's whole podcast.
Yeah, so I won't tell the story. I'll save it for Mike. But yeah, you did. I'll tell this part of the story.
6 a.m. on Mondays.
6 a.m. on Mondays because you thought I was a freshman.
That's when I scheduled him to do radio because I didn't recognize the name.
Yeah, I was probably I wasn't a senior yet. I was probably like
you were.
Was I?
Yeah, because I was sports director my junior year, so it would have had to be in your senior year.
Okay, I didn't realize I waited it out. I lasted that long.
Yeah, fall your senior year, I gave you 6:26 a.m. on Monday Sportscast on VIC Radio in Ithaca, New York.
VIC Radio, which is like the internet radio.
That was the minor league station.
Yeah, it wasn't even. It's not even like the one that was actually on the dial.
Actually on the radio, right?
Yeah, no, I was so out. I mean,
anyway, you started blogging about the Patriots because you weren't doing radio.
Yeah, so. I started. Well, now we're really giving away Intern Mike's podcast. All right, we'll go back to some of the emails here. We did get a few email questions in. Linda, who's a big fan of the show, so she enjoys our show immensely. We really appreciate that. Thank you. She says, relatable analytics for Pat's operations player deep dives. Tip of the cap to the Kraft organization for getting you two in the building. Wow, really appreciate that. So any thoughts, and we've gotten this question before, and I don't have a definitive answer on some of it, but any thoughts on dates for in-stadium practice and padded practices? I'm flying up from Atlanta at 10-1 or both of those events. Hope to catch you on the field. Yeah, absolutely. Come say hi to us at some point when you're here.
So we tried doing the math on this.
Yeah.
And it's usually the end of that first week.
Yes.
But it's usually on Friday, right?
It's usually Friday night.
But this year, so it's usually that Friday night, and then they're off on Saturday.
Yes.
This year, they practice on Saturday.
The 27th.
No, the first full week. So this is August 2nd, August 3rd.
Right.
So will it still be Friday, or will it still be the end of the week? My guess would be if they do it again, we assume they're going to do it again, would be August 2nd or August 3rd. First fully padded practice, again, the rules change every year, I think is Monday the 29th.
Yes.
That would be the fifth practice.
Yes.
So they practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, off Saturday, back Sunday, then pads on Monday.
So the thing that always confuses me about so it's a 5-day ramp-up period, which
With one off day.
in the 6th day has to be an off day.
Oh, the 6th day has to be an
Within
off
the
day.
first 6 days, you have to have an off day. It doesn't have. It could be 2 and 3 and an off day. It could be you can kind of do whatever you want.
So that
but
Monday is the 5th practice.
So the part that always confuses me is, does veteran report date count as one of the 5 days?
That's Tuesday, right?
That's Tuesday the 23rd. So Tuesday the 23rd is when everybody has to be in the building.
Yeah.
They'll do the conditioning test. They'll have meetings, but they won't have a formal practice. The first day of formal practice, which is open to the public if you want to come by, is July 24th, the first full day of practice. So I believe that Tuesday the 23rd is part of the ramp-up period.
Right.
Report date, conditioning test, first team meeting, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
So that means the 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th, so that's 4 days.
Yeah.
Off day. There's a chance the 28th could be the first padded practice if that's the math.
Okay.
But it's going to be either the 28th or the 29th.
Okay.
That,
so there we go.
Yeah, that's the long way of looking at it. The non-padded practices are still fun to come to, but it's exactly what we see at minicamp and OTAs. It's just an extension of that. It's non-pads, it's non-contact, but you still see a lot of passing in those days because you're not going to do run game when there's no pads, right? You save that for the pads. So if you want to come and see like Drake May and Joe Milton spin it, then like those days are actually not terrible days to come to because you will see a lot of passing. All right.
Somebody in the YouTube chat asks if you're going to have a signing event.
If I'm going to have a signing event?
Yeah.
I was not planning on that, no. But you can come by and say hello. Like that, we don't need to.
Will you sign stuff? People come up to your training camp?
Maybe. I signed like a person's cast once, like a kid. Like asked me to sign a cast.
I did that when I worked in minor league baseball.
Like he was had a broken wrist, that type of cast. All right.
Wait, was this like Evan Lazar, the Patriots reporter? Like you were 10, your buddy was 10, he broke his wrist.
No. Evan Lazar, like Patriots reporter.
Oh, okay.
Even though I just hate that I just did that. Yeah. It actually happened in Germany.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Ronky, I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Hope I am. From Indianapolis asks, I've heard you guys and many others refer to the way Javon Baker moves in practice and how he is noticeably explosive. I was just wondering to know if it seems significantly more explosive than the other receivers we currently have on the roster and what role we envision him playing. So is it noticeably above the other receivers on the roster? I would say it's like Pop Douglas is also a very explosive mover.
Different kinds of explosive, but yeah.
Different kind of explosive. In terms of the body types that are more apt to, compare to Javon Baker, I'd say that he does move a little bit more, a little bit differently, a little bit more twitchy. He's got that ability to just kind of explode out of cuts and, really just use that second gear. I think that was the thing that stood out to me the most with him is not necessarily that he's explosive off the line of scrimmage at any exceptional rate. He has a nice like second gear where he can find either through the break point at the top of the route or down the field, like when the ball's in the air and he's tracking it, he builds speed as he progresses down the field instead of like sputtering out as he goes down the field. But I don't necessarily look at him yet as like somebody who is like super explosive off the line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think he's more explosive like vertically, like his ability to go up and get the football and, run through contact, things like that. Role, I think they're just going to, well, it's a new offense, so I guess it's kind of tough it's apples and oranges, but like basically Devontae Parker. Like
he should be an X.
Right, he's going to be their X. He's going to be their jump ball, red zone. I don't think we talk enough about him maybe in the red zone as we should.
Yeah.
But that kind of contested catch receiver, I think that's his role.
Okay. How do you think this is from Ben in the UK?
Yeah. I didn't read any of the names on YouTube.
This is actually it's Chutters. Yeah, Claire. Claire Perspective. He does the podcast with her. This is Chutters is her sidekick.
Okay.
Yeah. How do you think May should be given time in preseason games? First drive with the ones, or Brissett should get the first look? This is a really good question.
I did this on a podcast. All right.
Should May get a larger share of the reps to aid his development? So if you remember back to the Mac Jones summer, which is all I have to compare it to, really, Cam Newton started games in the preseason, and then Mac would run like 2 quarters, just Mac. So if they follow that script, then it would be Jacoby Brissett would get the ones and get the first quarter.
Right.
Then maybe you see Drake May for the whole second and third quarter, and then they maybe give Joe Milton the fourth quarter or something like that.
This is where there's a couple wild cards here. 1, new coaching staff. We don't know how they're going to manage it. 2, is Bailey Zappi here for the preseason? Because I don't think he's just.
And do they
sit.
care to give him reps?
So, I did this on a podcast a couple weeks ago. You have 12 quarters of preseason football,
Yes.
right? 3 games forward, 12 quarters. And I don't know why I'm doing so many over-unders today. 6.5, Drake May. 6.5 quarters of football we see out of him.
So meaning he plays more than just a half or 2 quarters, whatever that's. I would say, I'm going to say over because I think there's a chance that they might want to play him into the fourth quarter just to see that extended look at him and maybe, work on some things and stuff like that.
I go the other way.
Okay.
I wonder if I go over, but for a different reason.
Okay.
I wonder if Jacoby Brissett plays in all 3 games.
And he gets to start at
Does
the
he
third
get
preseason game.
Right, the veteran treatment. Even Mac Jones last year only started 1 game.
Yeah.
Right? He only played in 1 game. Was that first game?
Nobody played in the Tennessee game, and
That was the third one, right? No,
yes.
Yeah.
Third one. Mac played the Green Bay game. It was up and down.
Yeah.
And then the Titans game, everybody sat.
Right. And in the first game, Mac didn't play either.
Yeah.
So, does Jacoby, again, new coaching staff, new everything, who knows? But what if here's one potential timeline.
Yep.
Week 1, quarter 1, Bailey Zappi. Second quarter, third
We're talking about preseason.
Yeah. Second quarter, third quarter, Drake May. Fourth quarter, Joe Milton.
Yeah.
Week 2, Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Drake May, Joe Milton.
Yep.
Week 3, Drake May, Joe Milton.
So that's probably, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Or actually, sorry. Let me flip that. Jacoby starts the first game because part of the reason, if they're going to sit Jacoby for a preseason game,
Yes.
it makes the most sense that it's that Eagles game
Yeah.
because he's had the joint practices against them.
Yeah.
But the idea of
one
being
joint practice,
basically
yeah.
3 different quarterbacks, start all 3 different preseason games, and Drake May's just playing in the middle of all of them.
The only possible thing
Yeah.
would be if they're trying to showcase Bailey Zappi.
So that's a factor here.
Yeah.
And,
Like a Jacoby Brissett
right.
preseason type game.
Well,
but they don't have the 4th preseason game now like they did back then.
and this is the year they miss it.
Yeah.
As much as this would suck, I think that there's a possibility that Joe Milton doesn't play in the preseason.
Just to hide it.
No, just because they want to give. We saw it in the spring.
I think there's a chance that a chance.
He's making it to roster cuts. Calm down. He's making it to roster
No.
cuts.
That's not where I'm
Yeah.
going. I think there's a chance that they hide the bazooka from the fans.
People know.
People know
Oh, from the fans or from other teams? Hang on.
from the masses. I shouldn't say just the fans. Your station, the masses. Because in order to see Joe Milton
Yeah.
and to see the bazooka, now you need to go to training camp. And your station needs to do their shows down there, which they will, I'm sure. But now you have to actually really want to make this a
So
thing.
you're using Joe Milton just for marketing, essentially. I don't know about that.
No. Not. I'm saying that if you put it out there on a TV broadcast for the whole world to see, and he has a out-of-body experience in the preseason,
Could happen.
the hype is going to go like this.
I
was back at the draft. I was like this. I am in favor of taking a bucket of water on the Joe Milton hype and dumping it as much as I possibly can.
You've heard me say this since the Senior Bowl. What is the first thing I told you about Joe Milton? He is going to have the most exciting preseason in NFL history.
I would like to avoid that.
I understand that. I think if he doesn't play, it's because they, like we saw in the spring, they just prioritize the other reps. Jacoby Brissett's got to get ready for the start of the season. Obviously, and if I'm ranking them in order of importance, Drake May's got to get, you need that for his development. Jacoby Brissett's got to get ready for the start of the season. And then, like you mentioned, if they are going to showcase Bailey Zappi, I think that takes precedent. Probably it would take precedent over Joe Milton. If they move Bailey Zappi I do think we see a lot of Joe Milton in the preseason in games. I'm sorry, I think we do, and it's going to be a roller coaster.
He's going to have the Malik Cunningham drive against the Houston Texans, and we're going to hear about it all year. Remember that drive in the fourth quarter?
Oh yeah. Remember the throw? There was an incomplete throw that everybody kept going back to.
It was on a bootleg, right?
I think Joe Milton's and let me be clear, Joe Milton is better than Malik Cunningham.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But if they're hiding him for the narrative, that worries me about what they think of Drake May.
I kind of had a feeling in the spring. We did not see a whole lot of reps for Joe Milton in the spring.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
But we didn't see a whole lot of reps for Bailey Zappi either.
Yeah, but it's a different situation. Joe Milton's a rookie. Like, you're trying to develop the guy. You clearly see something in him to draft him.
I think they have two quarterbacks that they
just perk the ears up a little bit.
I think they have two quarterbacks that have immediate needs.
Yes.
In terms of Jacoby Brissett getting ready and Drake May's development.
Yep.
And that's where the reps are to go around. I think Joe Milton.
Is there a chance, though, and this is total tinfoil hat, that behind closed doors in the spring, Joe Milton was seeing a ton more reps than in the practices that were open to us? Because I think there's a chance that was the case.
I guess maybe.
I just
but if that's the case, one that worries me what they think about Drake May.
Yeah.
That he can't handle that. It also kind of excites me about Joe Milton. Because what's he doing that it's the man. So Joe Milton is now the Manhattan Project?
Yes.
We can't let people see this. It's going to change the world?
Right. You have to be on the clearance list to see him. You got to get by the security.
I think we have the new nickname because Joe Milton doesn't like the nickname Bazooka Joe because a bazooka can only go so far.
He's the Manhattan Project.
The Manhattan Project.
Oh, no.
Joe Milton, the Manhattan Project.
That's actually pretty good. All right, let's answer the last couple of these
questions. What's Oppenheimer's first name again?
Oh God, it's fancy.
I should know that.
Yeah, we definitely should know that.
J. Robert Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So it's Joe Milton Oppenheimer.
He's Oppenheimer. Oh no. All right. This is from Paul, and this is how would he wants to go out to training camp practice, watch a couple practices, and he asks, how would you tell people to watch practices to understand what's going on? And i.e. what to look for, how to evaluate, etc. Paul, it's your lucky day. We actually did this show. We did this show last year, and I know you're going to have to scroll back through the shows that we've done in the past year. So
I also wrote it, actually, on 98.
But we did like a FAQ of how to watch a training camp practice like media, like we do. So you can go ahead and listen to that show. Not everybody liked that show. We got some people that were like, "What the heck is this?"
People were really upset by that, which was weird.
Yeah, but it was one of these off-season shows that we, were looking for something to do and talk about, and I thought it came out pretty well. So go back and look like around this time last year, June, July, dead period of the off-season, and you'll find that show, and you'll answer your own question. All right, this is I don't know who this is from. But good day, guys. Love Catch-22. My question is two parts. What is one or more things about the Patriots you're ominous about, and what are you optimistic about with this team? So I think the thing that I am ominous about remains the offensive line.
Has to be.
Biggest story with the team right now in terms of what's the big weakness or the big hole. It remains the offensive line. We've talked in 17 different ways about why.
Right.
But, obviously the tackle situation, I think, is at the top of that list. I do believe that they will be able to find three solid interior players. It might mean moving Onwenu back inside, which might not be what they really want to do. But they could find a decent interior between Sidy Sow, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu. Maybe Cole Strange comes back at some point. They could be okay up the middle. It's the tackles that are scary. Scary bad.
Yeah.
What am I optimistic about? I'm bullish on the defense. I remain bullish on the defense. I might be in the minority. I don't know. I know there are a lot of people that feel like Belichick is going to be a big loss. Belichick's, I should say. Steve Allison. Yeah. Fair critique. There was a chance, I think, early on in the season that DeMarcus Covington still is trying to figure out calling plays in game and all that kind of stuff, and maybe it's not great out of the gate. But I think ultimately their talent will carry them on the defensive side of the ball, and I really do believe that they're going to be a very good defense.
I would say specifically the secondary.
Yeah.
Very, very excited for the secondary. I think there's a ton of potential there. It's a young group. It's an athletic group, good size, good speed, good technique. Mike Pellegrino's back. You talk about the loss of the Belichicks, which obviously is not nothing, but I do think it's massive they got Mike Pellegrino back. Underrated coach. I'm really excited to see what secondary can do.
A little breaking news.
Sure.
Got some Patriots breaking news.
Oh, boy.
Filed to ESPN via Mike Reese and Adam Schefter, Patriots and linebacker Jahlani Tavai have agreed on a 3-year extension. Maximum value of $21 million, base value of $15 million per sources. Again, this is from Reese reporting that Jahlani Tavai on an extension. So another in-house guy that was going to be a free agent at the end of this coming up season. It's going to be a 2025 free agent. Now signs to a 3-year deal. I actually love this contract.
Yeah.
And don't say I love every contract because I killed them for Ramondre Stevenson last week. I actually really like this contract. I think Jahlani Tavai is one of the most underrated linebackers in the NFL. Wears a ton of different hats, has really improved his game in space. Like, he's no longer a liability in coverage. His instincts and his reads are much, much better than when they first got their hands on him. A really, still a Belichick lunch pail guy. In my opinion, a hard hat guy. He's not necessarily somebody that's going to be eye-popping in terms of the production or the splash plays or something like that, but he is a very, very, very good player, like solid, rock solid player, and that's good value. 3 years, $21 million. You're not overpaying by any stretch of the imagination, so I think this is a really good deal for the Patriots.
Yeah, I'd agree. Again, wears a lot of hats for him. Good, especially a good early down player, which you need, especially if we'll see what happens with Devon Godshaw. It's another guy that impacts those downs, and a leader in the locker room, which is you're going through a state of change, which the Patriots are. You want to make sure you keep that core intact. So,
good for him.
How old is he?
Well, this is his technically third.
Wow, he's going his age 28 season.
Yeah.
I thought he was like 30. Yeah, great contract. Good job.
Really good contract for the Patriots there, and again, I this is why, and just to expand on the bullish on and then we have to wrap on the defense really quickly. This is why I'm bullish on the defense, is because not only do they have those high-end guys like Christian Barmore, Matthew Judon, Christian Gonzalez, potentially maybe Kyle Duggar, I think can be one of the blue chip or at least a red chip player for them, Jabril Peppers. They also have a bunch of these lunch pail Belichick guys still, those guys that are just going to come to work every single day and do their jobs. Bentley, Tavai, Godshaw, Dietrich Wise, they're loaded with those guys as well. So you have top-end talent, you have depth, you have that next middle class layer there too, and then you have some young guys that hopefully are up and coming as well. We talked about Zay Bolden today, those types of players. So exciting contract for the Patriots. And just a reminder before we sign off here, we will not have a show next week. I'm going to be on vacation. The following week we will be back, and believe it or not, Alex, training camp preview.
It's
Crazy. All right, right before we go here, Bridgestone, the official tire of the New England Patriots, is a proud partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. And one last time, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor, the New England Patriots. Enjoy your 4th. PU's up next.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.